Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Scott Luton and special guest host Ward Richmond in the house here on Supply Chain Now. We've got a great episode teed up. Welcome to the show. Ward, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. Good to be here. It's been too long, man.
I know. Well, if there's ever a reason to come back together and take a little time from our schedules, it is to interview our special guests here today. And Ward, I see you've got a pretty cool hat on. Where can I get one of those cool hats?
Well, these hats are available. All you got to do is just shoot me an email and I'll get you one. I've actually got it. I'm out of them right now, but I'm ordering more. They're my supplychainrealestate.com hats. So they're trucker hats, of course. They have the mesh back on them. And I wanted to sport that today since we're talking about truck driving and truckers on the road. So
TP, computer chips, and really cool Ward hats, all absent. We'll get our team on that. But regardless, we've got an outstanding episode here today, folks. Beyond Ward, who always makes a great show, we've got a over-the-road professional truck driver here and really an ambassador for the driving industry. So stay tuned. Ward, are you as excited as I am about this conversation?
I am. I'm pumped up about it.
All right. So let's save the most of our time for our special guest. So with no further ado, I want to welcome in Kellylynn McLaughlin, an OTR professional driver and training engineer with Schneider. And if that's not enough, a driver ambassador with women in trucking. So Kellylynn, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? I got to say howdy because I'm a Texan.
Oh, I didn't know you were in Texas. I didn't pick that up on that.
Well, I'm actually in Santa Fe, but I was born in Texas, raised in Oklahoma. And so
all right. Well,
I usually say howdy when I greet people.
You got your fellow Texan here with you, so I got you.
All right. Well, it's like you took a sneak peek at our interview framework here today, Kellylynn, because that's exactly where we want to start. So Ward,
yeah,
where are we going first?
Kellylynn, great to have you here. Good to reconnect. Let's start out by just talking a little bit about you. Like, where are you from? Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that so we can get the backstory.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Lubbock, but I was raised most of the time in Oklahoma City. And I would spend every summer out on my grandparents' ranch. They raised Angus cattle. And my job every summer was to make the sweet tea to take it out to the people that were doing the work out in the field, either cutting hay or, castrating the young bulls. I'm so sorry. But that's kind of what I did. My dad was an amateur race car driver. And so there were a lot of fast cars in my life. And matter of fact, the very first car I ever rode in was one of the old style Porsches that had those slanted roofs. And my brother and I had to sit under the sun in Lubbock, Texas, in that little slanted area. That was our seat. So safe, right? Yeah. But anyway, so I grew up doing that and I wound up going to OSU and getting a degree there. And my life after college really changed.
Well, so really quick, folks from Atlanta are Atlantans, right? What are folks from Lubbock called?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know that.
I'm trying to figure that out, as well as folks from Dallas, Ward.
We're Dallasites is what they call us.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
So I actually, growing up in Texas, my cousins all lived out in the country. So my uncle is a cattle rancher. So I never castrated any bulls, but I was part of the pregnant testing of cow process, right. Which is that is something to witness as a junior high schooler. And that turned me off from the cattle ranching industry.
I can only imagine.
Well, my other job was to pick okra out in her garden. That was so itchy, but I still love okra. I love fried okra. So
is there anything better, really? Hopefully that was part of your contract for picking okra, is that she'd fry it right there, salt it right as it came out of the fryer. That's one of the best things known to humanity, right?
Yeah, truly. Yeah, you got to be a Southerner to understand that.
Yeah. Maybe so. All right. So Ward, you've done a good job of really getting some of Kellylynn's background out, growing up there in Lubbock, Texas, and some of those farm experiences. Of course, we got to talk food and fried okra.
Well, Scott, sorry, I have to say one more thing about Lubbock, Texas. Is like I think of it as like the music capital of Texas. Everyone thinks of Austin, but Lubbock is home of Buddy Holly and Waylon Jennings.
Oh, wow.
So he really grew up in Littlefield, but I think of them both as Lubbock guys, and the whole West Texas music scene. You know how much I love good Texas music. And I mean, it's just the place to be for all that great music.
Peggy Sue. Is that one of your Buddy Holly favorites?
Yeah, and Waylon Jennings started his career as a radio DJ, which was basically like being a podcaster. So we have that in common. And also, I have to show you, I have a Waylon Jennings tattoo on my arm.
Oh, wow.
Because
impressive.
I mean, and I got to my band back in the day, we played a show with Waylon back in 2001, and that was just before he passed away.
Wow.
I got to meet the man himself backstage at a concert. So that was like childhood dream come true.
I love that. All right. One more music thing. I want to ask Kellylynn one more follow-up question on food before we start talking her journey is that Highwaymen concert in the early 90s. It's on YouTube. You know, they play a full 12 or 14 song set. Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, of course, Waylon.
Johnny Cash.
That is one of the best free concerts available out there.
The best.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Kellylynn.
But I was going to say my mom recently passed, and while she was passing, we played Willie Nelson, Redheaded Stranger.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Willie Nelson has a soft place in my heart. Yeah, truly. And Johnny Cash, I love Johnny Cash as well.
I got one more story on that. Redheaded Stranger was recorded at the Audio Dallas recording studio, right down here where I did an album there back in 2016 and got to record there, and it's still like all cool vintage style. And I mean, they didn't change a thing since he recorded that album there.
Wow.
So, actually in Garland, Texas.
All right.
We got to talk about truck driving.
to our listeners, I promise you, we're going to be talking about supply chain and truck driving, and that's where we're going next. But it sounds like we could talk for hours, three of us, about music and food for that matter. But Kellylynn, rather, I want to talk about, you've got a fascinating pre-truck driving, kind of pre your current positions, history. A little bit of so you graduated from Oklahoma State University. Go Cowboys, right?
Yeah, go Pokes.
That's right. Go Pokes. That's right. You served in the Peace Corps. You worked internationally for a nonprofit. And what we're going to talk about in a moment is you also led the logistics for a high school marching band that perhaps changed the trajectory of your career. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, working internationally with a nonprofit, and of course, via the Peace Corps as well. What was one of your favorite parts about that part of your journey?
Well, let me just go back a little bit, because this is, I think, what a lot of college kids happens to them is that you go through college, you get a degree, you get so far along, you just have to finish the darn degree, right? But you maybe find out that that's not what you want to do the rest of your life. And that happened to me. So I graduated with a degree and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Right. And this was about the time of the Nicaragua issues going on. And I just really felt confused and uninformed, as you know, I just had a very sheltered life. So I went overseas to learn more about the world. And as I did, I learned more about myself, and I found a new direction. I always thought that I wanted to be a pilot. And as a matter of fact, I was flying airplanes before I was tinkering around and racing around in my dad's sports cars.
Wow.
But I even was accepted into the Air Force Academy, but at the last minute, just a change of direction. And it was probably one of the best things I did. I went overseas. And the thing I learned was that I had this huge part of me that wanted to make the world a better place. When I found out that not everybody had the same luxuries that I did, only because they were born a different color or in a different place. So you don't choose who you are when you're born. You get what you get, right? And that was a huge awakening to me. And that's why I stayed in international development for over a decade. and I worked for an organization called World Neighbors, and they used to be quite large, but our country went through some declines economically, and giving went away for a period of time, and some organizations couldn't survive that, and that one really hurt. And I'm still connected with all of my friends overseas. And a matter of fact, we have a monthly get together, and we're still working together as a group to try and make the world a better place.
Love that.
And yeah,
sounds like it's comes from a very passionate, genuine part of you, Kellylynn. And we need more folks like that. We need more folks building those bridges and bringing folks together, because there's plenty of topics that's pulling us apart. So, So clearly, part of your international journey was experimenting and finding out more about yourself and really what you want to do in life. One more question, and I want to talk about this pivotal role with the marching band. You're flying aircraft too. Just when the legend of Kellylynn McLaughlin cannot get bigger, you're flying around an aircraft too. What'd you fly?
Well, I flew single engine aircraft, from the time I was 14 until about 19, and I had a hot air balloon stage for a short period of time. I decided that required way too much logistics. I couldn't do it. Once I got into college and my money started dwindling, those kinds of things had to go by. But I did get a scholarship through Civil Air Patrol to go fly T-38 jets in Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma. OMG, that was so much fun. Amazing.
Now the T-38, folks, y'all should know that she's referencing was the lead trainer for the Air Force for decades. It's now going through, and I think I'm not sure if they've selected a replacement just yet. I know there was a big procurement play there, but so you've flown in a T-38 as well. Is that right, Kellylynn?
A T-38, a P-38, all the different Cessnas. I flew it all.
Man.
So but I just couldn't afford it once, I got in college and I had to pay for that, and it just kind of went by the wayside. But I'm thinking about going back and getting back into it, because my youngest daughter is now studying at OSU to become a commercial pilot.
Wow.
So
Very
she's finishing up her instrument right now, and then, moving on. And I'm thinking, like, wouldn't it be great? We could just take turns flying, go across the country, and
Love it. When oysters aren't in season, you go to wherever they are in season. How cool is that?
Yep.
So let's talk. It sounds like we need to book 6 hours with Kellylynn next time to get all the stories out there. But let's talk about this pivotal role as director of logistics with the high school marching band. Tell us about that.
Right. So I was very involved with my kids when, they're little in school. But when they get into high school, I figured out there's not a lot of opportunity to be a parent volunteer. And, they're kind of learning how to grow on their own, and the schools want to build that separation. And so I figured out that they were both a little bit musically inclined, more nerdy than musically inclined, which is why they wound up in band. And I thought, well, I'll be a band volunteer. But I hung out for a year and just kind of observed what was going on. And my daughter's only a year apart. And I thought those band parents were kind of nutty. They were really into the band. I was never a band kid. I didn't get it. It was very expensive, and the Midwest and Southern bands are huge. And it was the largest school activity in terms of numbers of kids participating. We had a $350,000 budget and 350 kids. Amazing. Anyway, I got asked to coordinate logistics because I was a Peace Corps volunteer and knew how to do a bunch of different things, right? And I said yes, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I had to coordinate all the volunteers, the props, on and off the shows. We fed all the kids and the students, so like 1,000 meals a day at our events. We had
quite some
53
logistics, Kellylynn. Those are some big time logistics. You're not lying.
And guess what? I also had to fix the equipment too, because they're rolling those things all over the place, and they'd break wheels and all sorts of things. And we had this, had a bunch of trailers that got a couple of food trucks, and then some just, equipment trailers. And then we had this 53-foot lowboy, which had been modified, and it had hoists and winches that came out the side and podiums that popped out. It was double decker. We put all the uniforms in it. I mean, it was a job. It was a full-time job. I had no idea. Anyway, the we had a dad that used to drive for Crete. He was the volunteer driver. He was grumpy. He told me, don't put anybody in my cab. And he got in my face when he said it. And I was like, okay, dude, you're on your own. You get all the space you need. And then after about a year of doing that, and I did it for 4 years, I told him, I was like, I think I figured out I'm your boss. And I want to ride in that truck on the way up to St. Louis. No, we were going to Indy. And he said, sure. And I got in the truck, and he was just Mr. Chatty. He was so nice. He's been one of my biggest mentors and encouragers. And one of the things he said on that very first trip was, I was like, oh, I got, this is the closest thing to flying I have felt in a long time, is exactly what I said. And he's like, you can do it. And I looked at him and I was like, nah, I don't think so. It takes, way more than what I got. And he said, no, you go to CDL school, you get a permit, just like you did when you were learning to drive a car. And then you go take the test and you're a truck driver. It's not quite like that. But it was enough encouragement that I went home and I thought about it. And after all of the adventures that I've had, and I have young daughters that are trying to figure out what they want to be in life, I thought, do I want to be on my deathbed and say, gee, I wish I had learned how to be a truck driver. I wish I had driven a big rig after all these other things. And the answer was no, I don't want to pass. So I just did what it took to make it happen.
I love that. All right. So Ward, I want to, based on what you heard there, but I know you're going to take it in a different direction, but based on what you heard there, what is so cool about Kellylynn finding at least one of her callings in life through a kind of a, via a job that she probably didn't think that was being part of the value prop. Ward, what'd you hear there?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just think it's just like the hero's journey there, and you're living life and you're doing something to help out with your kids, and then all of a sudden you're seeing these you're feeling the same feelings you felt when you were flying an airplane, riding in the cab of a truck. You probably never would have thought that. And then and that's like there's so many of those forks in the road in life, and it's like, that's cool. Are you gonna go for it? And I mean, I've faced that before when I watched a friend's band play in a garage one time, and I said, I want to go do that. And I bet Scott one day is like, I want to start a podcast because this is cool. And I mean, it's not something that's on this normal path, but then you go take it. And I mean, now you've built what you've built, Scott. So I think it's so cool. And so it was just leading into my next question for Kellylynn.
Oh, I've got one more important key takeaway, and then you the baton's all yours. But Kellylynn, it's already an inspirational conversation for us, and it reminds me of I'm gonna butcher this quote, but I think it's an important one. It's one of my favorite ones I've come across with lately. Saint Francis of Assisi. You know who I'm talking about. I may have said that wrong too. That's okay. He was quoted as saying long ago is that the words you share in the moment may be the only sermon that certain individuals hear. And, inspiration can come from everywhere. Motivation, the empowerment can come from anywhere. And it is just so cool that you challenging the truck driver that you'd like to ride in his cab, and then the relationship y'all had that had such a big impact on uncovering one of the reasons you're here on this earth, to not only do what you do, critical background of global supply chain, but be an inspiration and ambassador for the industry. And we need lots of that. So Kellylynn, I really appreciate you sharing that story. And I'll never look at marching bands ever again the same way.
Yeah, they are a feat of engineering and hard work.
I love that. So Ward, I'm going to ask you a question and then you take it to this next segment. But were you in the marching band? And if you were, was it anything like what Kellylynn just painted that picture of?
I was on the football team. So
that's right.
Right.
Yeah, I was a football player. So I didn't play I started playing in the band, like a rock band, my senior year of high school, but never was in the marching band.
Okay, that's right.
You're a linebacker. I always appreciate a good drum line, and I mean that just like gets you pumped up at the pep rallies and the football games. Like I still know, like in my head, these songs, that would play and all of that. And
love it.
even incorporated some of that into my own bands that we played in over the years, like some of those songs from football. So
I love it.
That's
okay. Cool. All right. So appreciate you sharing that aspect of your journey. Ward, where are we going next with Kellylynn?
Okay. So now we're going to move into, you followed the dream, you got the CDL, you are now an official OTR professional driver. That's over the road. For those that don't know, that's a long haul trucker. If you want to, get real colloquial about it. And one of the most impressive jobs. And I know I keep talking about me being in a band and everything, but Kellylynn and I met because I do work in the commercial real estate sector, specializing in working with trucking companies and logistics companies. Through that, I became affiliated with NASTCO, which is how we met. And so, and we started talking about truck parking is how we started talking about. So that's just a little background there. And now would love to just dig into life on the road and what does your day look like or year look like as a long haul trucker?
Well, as a long haul trucker, when I'm driving, I don't know where I'm going. I get my assignments. I drive for a carrier. I'm a company driver. I drive dry van. I have a sleeper truck as opposed to a day cab, which is a little bit shorter and more maneuverable. I have my tanker endorsement. So occasionally I am a tanker. And what they do is they put these 500-gallon totes. They call them totes. They're not totes. You cannot pick these things up. But they fill up my box with all these totes. And then you kind of like go down the ocean like a ship. It's one of my favorite things to do is to be a tanker. And which is different from oversized heavy haul, from bulk, which are straight up tankers, flatbed, that kind of thing. So I can carry anything they can put in my box. I'm limited to 80,000 pounds. And I go out anywhere from 5 days to 3 weeks at a time. And I sleep in my truck. I eat in my truck. I do my business in my truck. It's my home. It's my workspace. It's my kitchen. It's my bed. It's, it's amazing what I can put into my space. And I get very creative with my cooking. I do have a fridge now in the truck that I have. Her name is Amelia, and she is named after Amelia Earhart. Go figure.
There you go.
And, I just love it. I love the adventure. I'm a very social person and outgoing. I love meeting new people. That was one of the things that really surprised me, like how many people I got to meet, because there's this misconception that this is a very lonely job. It can be. If you're an introvert, you can make it a quiet, peaceful thing. But for me, I was meeting new people. I love meeting the customers. Pre-COVID, one of my favorite things to do at a customer was get offered a tour of the facility. So I get to see how things are made and stored and packaged, and fascinating. And before I was in trucking, I was one of those people that just didn't appreciate the supply chain. I took it for granted. And I thought trucks were in my way. I didn't understand why they were so slow and their speeds would vary. And they took up so much darn space. I mean, like, really, just get out of my way. Okay. And, but I still had an appreciation for them. I thought they were the cowboys of the highway, right? I didn't have the perception that they were less than human, which somehow over the years that happened. And it is incredibly sad. And I also gained an appreciation for how dangerous this job is, and that we are, in terms of numbers of death, we're the 5th most dangerous job in the nation. In terms of injury rates, we're 233% more likely to have an injury on the job than, and this is from US Bureau of Labor and Statistics. That's just sad that these people have the lifestyle challenges they have, incredibly low pay. They work a 70-hour week. It's super dangerous. They have very little time at home. It's hard on the relationships. And then they're treated oftentimes not respectfully by the people that we share the road with that depend. They absolutely 100% depend on us, if I could just say that. And they don't see us.
Right.
And I mean, like, really, I'm big and I'm orange because I drive for Schneider. And It's like, really, how can you not see me? I'm like the giant pumpkin on
Right.
the road.
So I bet there's going to be some folks listening to this podcast that what you just shared over the last 3 minutes is new to them, right? Whether it's because of their role in global business, maybe that they're not involved in supply chain or logistics or shipping, what have you. So spill that out a little bit more. Where do you think most of the discourtesy, is that a right discourtesy, that the unprofessional, the lack of professional courtesy that is afforded our truck driving professionals, where does most of that take place, Kellylynn?
Well, I think there's not one place, sadly. I would like to say this is the biggest problem, but I don't see it as one place. And when I came into the industry, I was absolutely mortified by how I was treated everywhere I went,
Wow.
including with my family and friends at home. They're like, really? You're going to be a truck driver? Oh my God, she's lost her mind. She's gone to the dark side. Why would you want to do that? I mean, really, nobody respected the fact that I was a truck driver. And I even had people tell me that it was not a place for women. Like, I don't want to work with you. It's like, for real? I thought you were my friend. But, like when I'm driving on the road, people cut me off. They don't give me the space that I need, people just flip you off for being slow, but dang, right. I'm 80,000 pounds. Do you know how long it takes me to get going or stop? They don't know.
On that, if anyone can relate to anything, we're all drivers, even in these crazy times. You're referencing changing speeds early. What do you and maybe most truck drivers wish that other non-truck drivers, driving our small little cars and SUVs,
the four-wheelers is what they call us.
The four-wheelers, right?
Four-wheelers, that's right.
My wish is that they give me the space that I need to do my job. That means giving me enough space to stop, and don't turn in front of me until you can see all of me in your rear view mirror. And don't expect that you know what's on the other side of me when you're merging into traffic and you want me to move over for you, that I can't do it quickly. If I see you coming, I always try and slow down and let people in. But if I have somebody on the other side of me, I definitely cannot move over. And if you're indecisive about what you're going to do when you're merged, I can't accommodate that.
That's gold.
Really can't.
Those last 2 minutes, we're going to make sure is one of the snackables that come out of this. That is gold. Everyone should know that and act on it. So Ward, yeah. I think there's three main roles, and I'm sure Kellylynn has others that we wanted to kind of uncover here today. Yeah. I think the first one, I think we've got a good sense. Or did you have a follow-up question?
Well, I had one more follow-up question, and I guess it's more of just a comment for the four-wheelers out there like me. And that's when you see these trucks driving down the road, you might get a little agitated. They're driving too slow or whatever it is. But you got to remember, not only are these human beings that are working to provide for their family, risking their lives, but on top of that, these truck drivers are delivering all of the products. When you press the button now on Amazon to get stuff delivered to your house the same day, like these are the people that are bringing it to your door, and they're out there risking their lives. And I think for me, when I got into commercial real estate and specifically logistics real estate and started walking through warehouses, distribution centers, and truck terminals and seeing all this, like you said, it just opens your eyes. So when I go to the grocery store, I just started looking around like, oh my gosh, like the logistics involved from the full truckload coming from the Kellogg's distribution center, going to all the different grocery stores and getting, but there's all of these people out there risking their lives. So everybody needs to not honk your horn and flip the bird, but have some gratitude for the people you're sharing the road with, and, give them a little nod with your trucker hat there. So we really appreciate it. But now moving on, aside from truck driving, you're also a training engineer for Schneider.
Right. So I take new hires from Schneider. They have a 3-week training program. The first 2 weeks are all in-house and getting tested and learning about our systems. And the last week is to go spend a week with a driver running their loads for them. So they're basically with me for 5 to 7 days. We run my loads. I have the work assignments, and I consider myself the finisher, not so much a trainer, but a finisher. So we're talking about customer service and lifestyle and how to manage your time and doing things over and over and over and over again with coupling and uncoupling and pre-trip and post-trip and sliding tandems and securing loads, checking tires, so that we're just building that into their muscle memory, right? So that they do the same thing every time so that they're safe. And I really enjoy it. I work with men and women that are trainees in my truck, and people from all over the world, which is great for me because I have a lot of cultural sensitivity, and I think I can relate and figure out how to communicate with people that aren't from the same culture as me. And I have a lot of respect and curiosity and appreciation for that. So I spend a week out with them doing that. And it's rewarding, and it's a little extra money in the pocket too, to be a trainer. So, and
there's a lot of bright people.
Actually,
Would you agree, Kelly? There's a lot of bright people coming into industry that you get to spend time and rub elbows with.
yes, that's true. And I'm kind of the first of the last stops before, if someone's really not prepared for this job, if they don't have the right kind of commitment to safety and the work ethic, then we just have those conversations, and sometimes I do have to move on. They don't pass. So,
I love it.
sadly, but I do what I can.
Well, that's great. So last thing here, now you talked about how like the, civilian four-wheelers view truck drivers in general, but then let's narrow it down to being a female truck driver and how that impacts you. And then specifically, you were the first driver ambassador for Women in Trucking Association,
Yep.
the Women's in Trucking Association. So would love to hear about that, and just females in the truck driving business. In commercial real estate, we're doing our best to be more diverse. But if you go to a commercial real estate conference, there's a bunch of white guys that are in the room and not as many women as we'd like to have. But I can only imagine, I think I've heard it before, like it's 3% or 5% or something of all truck drivers are females. Is that am I close to that? And maybe you could speak on that, and also the Women in Trucking Association.
Right. So when I started in trucking over 7 years ago, it was at 3%. And I'm happy to tell you that we're in nationwide, there are about 10% female commercial drivers out here.
That's awesome.
So that's a huge increase. My goal before I leave this position is I want to see it at 25%. 25% of the commercial motor vehicle drivers out there are female. We have statistics prove that we take less risks and that we are safer drivers than our male counterparts.
You're smarter.
And I don't know if we're smarter, but I just statistically, we have less dwell time, which is unused time on the clock, and we are safer drivers and we take less risks. And so there is a lot of opportunity out here. And one of the things that Women in Trucking Association is out here to do is share all these career opportunities, highlight some of our obstacles as we work forward to address some of them. And then also just to share stories of women out here who are successful. So I am one of many women that are out here that are enjoying it and loving it and think that there's a place for more women in this industry. Some of the things that I think that need to change in order for that to happen is we need to quit putting this career in the male only box, which is what I did before I was in it. So we need to just stop. We need to change that dialogue and tell our daughters, sisters, nieces, cousins, mothers that there are job opportunities in this industry for them, whether it be as a driver, a mechanic, some sort of technician or dispatcher, whatever, but they're out here. And we need to provide more opportunities in our, what do they call it? Technical skill training, vocational skills, and get that message out to the women. And I think that we need to do, because we have such a shortage of drivers right now, we need to find ways to make this training either more affordable or free, so that people that have the interest can get this training. I paid $5,000 out of my pocket in order to do this. $5,000. And when I started, I was making 28 cents a mile. And I did the math and I was like, dang, that's a lot of miles to pay for that. Right.
Yes.
So it is still $5,000 and generally between $4,000 and $5,000 to get a CDL if you're going to pay for it on your own. Most schools are Monday through Friday. I was lucky that I found a school that I could do my training on the weekend. So I could have a job during the week and do my training on the weekend. That's not very common. The schools, there's not a lot of consistency in the quality of the schools. There's not a lot of consistency in the training that you get after you have your CDL. When you're onboarding with your carrier, there's lots of room for growth there. And I would like to see more emphasis put on the quality of the training environment, not just for females, but for males as well.
Right.
But it's just, there's no consistency, and we need to make sure that it's harassment free, that carriers are not using these new hires as cheap labor to move freight, and they're working as a team. And so that they're not actually supervised when they're driving. The trainer is asleep in the bunk, and that it's paid and that it's standardized. And I'm one of 24 drivers that was nominated to be on a driver panel for FMCSA and MSAC, which is the Motor Carrier Safety Safety Committee. I'm at a loss for all the
regardless,
right
a big honor.
It is a huge honor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things we're talking about, and we don't have the decision-making power in this driver committee. But when I became an advocate for drivers, I thought, pie in the sky, I get to have conversations, get to have the ear of people at the federal level that make the decisions that affect me. And I have worked so hard to get here, and I'm not going to take for granted that opportunity. And there's 24 of us, all different kinds of drivers, even bus drivers. And we have the opportunity to share perspectives from the driver experience with these people who have the ability to change the legislation and the rules. And if we could create a standardized training environment for onboarding and for carriers, I would be absolutely thrilled.
Huge need, folks. We got to standardize and make it easy. It's one of many things we need to do to attack the challenge we have and offer more solutions. But hey, about 7 miles back, you talked about $5,000 for training and 28 cents a mile. That payback period was 17,858 miles to break even. So quick question there. And I want to talk about some other industry issues and challenges, but how has compensation changed? So 28 cents a mile when you were training, where are we at? Just roughly, where are we at now?
I think between 40 and 50 cents a mile is what new drivers, probably closer to 42 to 45 is what new drivers come on. And these are company drivers. I'm not speaking about owner operators, right? They have a whole another set of complicating factors, equipment, permits, Yeah. So,
and blessing,
and just to do the math for people that might be thinking about becoming a truck driver, which is one of the most in-demand jobs I think there is in the United States right now. How many miles a year do you typically drive, and how does that work out? At 40 cents or whatever, how many miles a year is standard or a range?
Well, let's say if it varies from driver to driver, right? And I wear multiple hats, as you said. So I'm not full-time driving. I'm doing ambassador stuff on the side too. So to become a million miler, it takes about 10 years, which is about 100,000 miles a year. I put in about 60 to 70 a year. And I'm finally more comfortable with my pay. And my company, I love my company. I drive for Schneider, and I have not found a reason to leave them, which is highest compliment I could give any carrier. And they have done so much to like listen to me and encourage me. And, when I go to them, I'm talking about driver experience or driver pay. They really do pay attention. And they do surveys. And that's one of the things that I think carriers can do is they really survey their drivers. And when the drivers say the reason that they're leaving, if they do exit surveys, the reason they're leaving is pay, believe them. Don't say, it is pay and working conditions, but you can't ignore the pay part.
Right.
Yeah.
We got to make a living, and we have a dangerous job. Drivers should be paid for the hardships and the risk that this job entails. We are expected almost across the board to work 70 hours a week. I believe that's unrealistic.
Wow.
And with COVID, our new drivers are from a different generation that expect they expect a career path, not just you become a driver and you stay a driver, but that there's a career path in this industry for them. And that pay increases and that they can have time with their family, and that balance, that work-life balance is important to them, and it should be important to them. And we need to accommodate that. I just don't think that we can keep on the way we're going.
So I'm with you, and I know an hour doesn't ever give you enough time to address and to get the full story out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're scratching the surface here. And I know you're a humble person, but beyond the FMCSA, right, accomplishment and honor, you are also a finalist for Influential Woman of the Year in 2019 for Women in Trucking Association. So you are certainly a mover and shaker, and the industry needs more educated perspective from the folks that make it happen. So we love you're a doer. And
I'm a doer, and I want to leave this industry better than I found it, for sure. And I love it. And I want to share the good things. And Ward, as you go about your real estate endeavors, think about parking. Parking is one of the biggest issues besides pay and driving conditions, but it's in the driving condition, right? And as you work with developers that are building these industrial areas, I can't tell you how many times I go into an industrial area and they know there's hundreds of thousands of us coming in and out of there every day, and they don't even build truck-friendly curbs or entrances. There's no place for us to park, to do our break. My Taj Mahal at the carrier I would arrive, I would only check in once, not twice, not at the gate, and then again inside the shipper. They would be able to tell me exactly where I'm parking. I would be able to take my break. There might be a truck stop nearby. It would be clean, plenty of space to pull up and set up for parking. The empties that I go pick up would be spaced far enough apart that I could walk between them in order to raise or lower the landing gear. Sometimes they're only 2 inches apart. So I literally have to crawl under there and do the little, rotating thing, half and then go back and half in order to get the landing gear to go up or down. And that there would be a break area that's air conditioned, that has a toilet, some food, maybe a water fountain to refill our water bottles, and that the signage is big and it's friendly, and that people are friendly, and that they just appreciate that we're there. So often I go to a carrier right now and it's hard to get in. There's no place to park. There's no toilets, there's no hand washing stations, and the business model for the supply chain related to drivers is broken. It's broken across the board. And we need to rethink that business model, and we need to make it, instead of just profit generated, we need to make it more people generated, people centered. And drivers really need to be at the center of that business model because we need them. We really, really, really need them.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So, all right. So you touched on a lot there, and I think there's something for shippers, or something for carriers, or something for developers. There's something for supply chain professionals, right? That have a hand or even a pinky in the environment and the conditions of the yards that you enter and the facilities you and fellow trucking professionals enter. And there's no shortage of change that needs to happen. But the one of the most disappointing things to me when I hear some of what you share and some of the other driving professionals that we interview is the easiest thing in my mind is just to be human and kind and considerate and professional, right, with our drivers. Why are we continuing to miss those basics that we learned in the kindergarten?
Yeah, right. I really think for some reason, I don't know why, I've asked a bunch of people, like, when did we become not important? When did we become not human? So if you are anywhere in the supply chain, make those positions that you would be happy to encourage a family member to fulfill, whatever you want to call it. And if it's a job that you think is unsavory and you wouldn't want a family member to do it, what are you going to do to change that? And everybody needs to be saying that.
Can I ask an edgy question?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's the stereotype that when you go to truck stops, you might often run into drugs and prostitution and criminal behavior at truck stops. And how has that, and I feel like that a lot of that could be like from the 80s or something, and I don't know if it still exists today, but how is that at the truck stops? And is it something that you faced? You pick out truck stops based upon knowing that there is a safer place with less of that stuff? And then is there a group of truck drivers that still support that economy of vice, I guess?
Well, the first thing that I really want to emphasize is that truckers are not the problem. And those problems use our infrastructure to make their business, whether it be drugs or prostitution. We're not the problem. We're actually in a really good place to be able to see the problem and do something about it. And I'm also a member of the Truckers Against Trafficking and on their advisory committee. And trucks, I'm not going to say it's not there, because it is, but it's not as prevalent as the general public thinks. And yes, part of being a truck driver is finding a safe place to park. And with that comes, I look for places that they're usually major chains, they're well lit, they have security, they keep it clean. And, that's, and I park in rest areas too, along the highways. I actually sometimes prefer those if I don't need a shower, because they have some green space to walk. They're typically quieter, and I like the ones that have a toilet. I mean, like, really, it's the hierarchy of needs.
Right. Well, hey, you mentioned a wonderful nonprofit. They've been on the show with us before. Love their mission. They shared a mother speaking about getting reunited with her daughter who was in trafficking. Truckers Against Trafficking.org. Folks, if you're looking for a nonprofit that is action focused, deeds not words, out there doing really good things to support, check out Truckers Against Trafficking. And it's great to hear, Kellylynn, you're on the board. So I'm
not on the board. I'm on the advisory committee.
Oh, sorry. Advisory committee. I'm sorry. I don't want to get anybody angry, but still they need advisors like you. I mean,
you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, like, I'm going to go figure out how our team can start becoming involved with that, because it's such an important cause. And that's just, there's nothing, more devastating than trafficking that's going on. And, I think you don't hear, I don't think everyone hears in the general public about the extent of it. Like, if the media talked about trafficking the way they do about COVID, it might change a lot of people's way of thinking about this kind of stuff.
Excellent point. I wish I could recite statistics. Maybe Kellylynn can. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of an economy powered by, one of the big worst crimes against humanity, right?
Yeah, and they're exploiting the infrastructure that I use to make a living. This is where I work, and they use the same thing to take advantage of that system. So
can you tell us like a little bit? Can you tell us a little more about how they use it? Just like, I mean, like what they're
how that's working?
Well, they're transporting their product, which is people, right, on our highway system.
Yeah.
And they often make exchanges in and around these truck stops and, the hotels along the way. Airbnbs I have a friend that's an undercover cop in Oklahoma City, and, he's like, they'll rent an Airbnb next to a major highway for a couple of days. And by the time anybody figures out what's going on, they've gone on and moved to a different Airbnb. It's heart-wrenching, some of these stories. And, but truckers are not the problem.
Right.
We're part of the solution.
Right. Well, as I'm on their site now, over 1.2 million truckers have been registered as truckers against trafficking trained. So they're getting trained up on what to look for. So that if we see something, we say something. And that's how they're rescuing, literally rescuing lives. Okay. So again, folks, go to truckersagainsttrafficking.org to learn a lot more. Kellylynn, bringing it back to you. I want to ask you about a powerful eureka moment here in recent times. But before we do, I know we've covered a wide range of topics related to the industry. Is there anything else we missed prior to kind of picking your brain on a eureka moment?
No, sometimes I like to talk about the future, and I really think that the game is changing right now, and people are going to see electric commercial motor vehicles and driverless commercial motor vehicles sooner than they think. And I actually think that's a great thing, because it can help us address some of these driver shortage needs and some of our environmental concerns. And with electric trucks is going to become hopefully shorter routes. So I think we'll be able to accommodate more people into the industry, because there won't be as much of a need or an ability to do the long haul routes. And, the platooning vehicles with the driverless vehicles will be doing more of the long haul. And then we'll have electric vehicles that are doing shorter routes. I think we need to see younger drivers that are on a career path. And I really think that carriers are going to have to wake up and pay us more and expect less than 70 hours a week out of us, and that our shippers are going to have to be more friendly, or else they're not going to get the loads from the carriers.
Right. So much. I appreciate you sharing that forward-looking vision. It is as exciting of a time as it is to be in an end-to-end global supply chain, regardless of your role. Also, as you're pointing out, Kellylynn, a lot of stuff's got to change, right? I would argue, we're kind of, it's a race at the bottom in many ways right now with the pressure we're putting on delivery times and those service levels. I've seen companies, and I wish I got to Google this. There's a company that's specializing in traditional shipping times. So folks that don't need the pair of socks in, same day or one day, they're specializing in those, 2-week 1980s shipping times. That's intriguing to me, but we'll save that for another show. Let's, so I appreciate, again, I love where you're coming from. I love your passion, your experiences. More folks need to hear from the Kellylynns of industry. Let's talk about maybe a little more on a personal level or leadership level. We all have eureka moments every day. And gosh, these last 18 months with the pandemic that Ward mentioned earlier that we're all living with in one way, shape, or form globally, we're probably having several eureka moments a day. What's been a powerful one for you here fairly recently?
Well, there's one moment that just really warms my heart. And I was driving along in this road, small town, 2 lanes each way, and this old conversion van pulled up next to me, and I noticed that there was a white-haired granny-like looking lady in the passenger seat. And I looked down, and then I looked up, and then I saw some movement out of the corner of my eye. I looked down again, and she's doing the whole arm pump thing. And she was with another granny lady that was driving the conversion minivan. And they were both yeah. And so I gave them a little honk. And this was in the middle of a small town. And you're not supposed to do that. That's not, okay, right? And anyway,
I'm not telling anybody.
I couldn't hold back. And so I gave them 2 honks. And they literally were exploding, laughing, clapping in their seats. And at first I was like, why are they so excited about this? But then I realized that it had to be that they saw another lady doing what they wished that they had been able to do. And it just made them happy. And it was awesome. I mean, I just, like, I'll never get that picture out of my head.
I love that. What a great story. And now that I'm not gonna get that picture out of my head, but Thelma and Louise, it sounds like they were having a blast and breaking all the rules, and you helped entertain them a little bit, brighten their day a little bit. So I love that, Kellylynn.
Yeah.
Okay. There's so much more. I know Ward and I would love to chat with you, but we want to make sure we offer bites of the elephant. So Kellylynn, how can folks connect with you in case they want to bring you in and have you speak to their organization or their association, or you name it? How can folks connect with you?
So my email is kellylynn@womenintruckingassociation.org. And you can find us at womenintruckingassociation.org as well online. We're a great organization. There's lots of opportunity for people to get involved. We're working on mentorship programs for new drivers. If you're on the associate side, lots of connections. It's a great networking place. And we're just at the decision-making table in so many venues. I love the carrier that I work for at Schneider. And if you're interested, you can find me through Schneider as well. So you just need to give them an email.
I love it. And we were gonna make it easy. So we're gonna take some of the things you mentioned, some of the links you mentioned, and you folks, you're gonna be able to find that in the show notes of the episode, along with some of the things that Ward has touched on as well. But Kellylynn, it's been so cool to sit down with you. You're better than advertised. We knew we were up for a great conversation here today, but I feel like we're just chapter one. There's hundreds more chapters. We'll have to have you back on and talk more with you. But really, thanks, big thanks for your time and consideration here today.
Yeah, well, thank you. I enjoyed it, and just remember, give us the space we need to do our job.
Right, and thank a trucker for what we all enjoy as consumers. They're the absolute backbone of the industry. Their problems are our problems, everybody's problems. So let's help drive some change there, and certainly give some awareness of the challenges that Kellylynn has been speaking to. So before we go, as much as we enjoyed learning about Kellylynn's journey, Ward, great to reconnect with you. You've got a couple of new projects up your sleeve too. How can feel free to tell us about that, and certainly tell us how we can connect with the Wolf.
Okay, Richmond. Man. I appreciate that. And Kellylynn, thanks so much. This is just such an amazing podcast today. So great to be here with you. So the best way to connect with me is always I work at Colliers International, and we're a large $3 billion publicly traded company. And my team is based here in our Dallas office. And we have a team website at supplychainrealestate.com. So that's a great place to go for all of your supply chain real estate needs. And you can contact me through there, or LinkedIn, or you can go to the Colliers website and Google my name. So any of those ways. And I did mention to Scott, and I'll just briefly touch on this. I just started a new company with one of my friends from college on September 1st officially, and it's called Supply Chain Labor, LLC. So we have a website called supplychainlabor.com. And my friend, Paul Ruby is his name. He's an immigration attorney. So we work together, and we actually are bringing over workers from overseas that want to come to America on permanent working visas to be truck drivers, and or distribution center workers, or work in manufacturing facilities, all things supply chain related. So there's lots of shortages in that area. And I've noticed that from being in the real estate sector for the last 15 years. And so we're going to try to take advantage of that, solve problems for our existing customers, trucking companies, logistics companies, e-com, all the shippers, and hopefully bring some more truck drivers over to keep doing what you're doing, Kellylynn.
Awesome.
That is wonderful. Where do you both y'all get any sleep at night? Goodness gracious, you are busy doing good things. Okay. Well, big thanks again. We've been talking with Kellylynn McLaughlin, fascinating professional doing what she does. Not only what she does, say functionally, but what she's doing in industry, right, to drive change and bring awareness. And it's tough to do anything without having the awareness and making sure folks know what's going on. So big thanks to Kellylynn McLaughlin. Of course, big thanks to the one and only Ward Richmond. It's really cool to hear what some of the cool things, some of the new initiatives you're up to, Ward. We'll have to have you back soon. And the Supply Chain Real Estate Series is back with us in October with our friends at Prologis. So y'all look for that. But hey, in the meantime, be sure to connect with both Kellylynn and Ward on social. If you enjoy conversations like these, check us out at supplychainnow.com. Of course, you can find us wherever you get your podcast from. Subscribe so you don't miss things like Kellylynn and Ward. But most importantly, folks, if you remember one thing, act on what you've heard here today. Do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. Be just like Kellylynn, and the world will be a better place. I promise you. That is all for now. We'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.